I saw that her face was caved in.
And the service too much for this family to bear.
A rotting body, that's what it smelled like.
Kristoff, described as a bold and bubbly soul in her 37 years, reduced to what her family says was a rotting corpse on display.
This wasn't somebody who died by violence or anything like that. She died peacefully in her sleep. So we expected her to look just or nearly as she did when she passed away.
What began as a tragic, heart-wrenching loss of a young woman who passed away in her sleep soon spiraled into a nightmarish series of events. At her funeral, the family was shocked by what they saw, their loved one lying in a casket in an advanced state of decay. The family of the deceased, horrified and infuriated, filed a lawsuit, seeking justice. On June 24, 2022, Regina Kristoff, a 37-year-old nurse and mother of 2 young boys, was found lifeless in her bed. Her family, already devastated by her untimely death, could not have foreseen the additional anguish they would face due to the alleged mishandling of her remains by the McManus Funeral Home in Brooklyn, New York. Chantel Jean, Regina's mother, vividly recalls the last time she saw her daughter alive. They had been celebrating her 6-year-old grandson's kindergarten graduation. Regina had left the gathering early, needing rest before work the next morning. The next day, Chantel found her daughter's lifeless body, a sight that marked the beginning of a series of tragic and deeply distressing events. The medical examiner swiftly took custody of Regina's body on June 25 to perform an autopsy. The autopsy results were pending, but the family wasted no time making funeral arrangements. They contacted McManus Funeral Home, where they paid approximately $6,000 for what they hoped would be a dignified farewell. The funeral was scheduled for July 9th, giving time for family members traveling from Florida and other places to gather in Brooklyn. From the outset, interactions with the funeral home were fraught with difficulty. Chantel Jean was told she could not view her daughter's body on multiple occasions. Initially, the reason given was that Regina was not yet dressed. Later, it was because her makeup had not been applied. This delay meant that Chantel did not see her daughter's body until the day of the funeral, by which time it was too late to make any necessary changes or interventions. The day of the funeral arrived, and with it, a scene like something out of a horror film. The family, expecting to see Regina preserved in a peaceful state, was instead confronted with a grotesque sight. Regina's face appeared caved in and burned, with what looked like fake skin melting off. As Chantel recounted in horror, a maggot crawled out of her daughter's eye. The stench of decay was overwhelming. Chantel did not recognize the person in the casket. She described what she saw as a monster. She couldn't see the daughter she knew, the vibrant and beautiful person she had been in life. The condition of Regina's body was so appalling that many family members, unable to bear the sight and smell, left the service. Chantel herself was left in a state of shock and trauma. She had to prevent Regina's young sons from seeing their mother in such a state. Instead of an open casket service where loved ones could say their goodbyes, the family was forced to close the casket and rely on a photograph to honor Regina's memory. Attorney Kurt Robertson, representing the family, pointed out that the family had taken photographs of Regina immediately after her passing, and at that time, there were no signs of decomposition. The medical examiner's office had held the body for only 2 days before it was released to the funeral home. However, the funeral home delayed picking up the body until June 28, 4 days after Regina's death. This delay, compounded by what the family alleges was improper embalming and preservation, resulted in the advanced state of decay by the time of the funeral. In response to the family's allegations, McManus Funeral Home issued a statement expressing sympathy for the family's grief but also attempting to deflect responsibility. The spokesperson claimed that the family had contacted the funeral home 4 days after Regina's passing and had requested services be scheduled 11 days later. They asserted that they had used their best efforts to prepare Regina's body under challenging circumstances and had informed the family of her condition prior to the day of the services. Despite these claims, the Kristoff family and their attorney insist that the funeral home's negligence is to blame for the horrific state of Regina's body. The family's lawsuit against McManus Funeral Home accuses them of failing to perform the services they were paid for and not properly preserving Regina's remains. The suit seeks to hold the funeral home accountable and to prevent other families from enduring similar experiences. The fallout from this incident has been severe. Chantel Jean has been left traumatized, suffering from anxiety and depression, haunted by the last image of her daughter. Other family members, deeply affected by the experience, have also sought counseling. The lawsuit, they hope, will bring some measure of justice and closure, though nothing can erase the pain of what they witnessed. Funeral director Anthony Tenga, in a recorded conversation with a reporter, acknowledged the terrible condition of Regina's body but attributed it to various factors, including the heat and the time elapsed from death to the funeral. He expressed deep sorrow and sought forgiveness from Chantel, though his attempts to apologize in person were rebuffed. The case highlights the critical importance of proper handling and care of deceased loved ones. For the Kristoff family, the lawsuit is not just about seeking damages but about ensuring that no other family has to endure the same nightmarish ordeal they faced in what should have been a time of respectful remembrance and closure. For the Kristoff family, the memory of Regina's horrific appearance in the casket haunts them. They remember her as a loving nurse and single mother with a vibrant personality. The last image they have of her, however, is one of a monstrous figure, a stark contrast to the woman they knew and loved. The funeral home insisted they did their best to prepare her body in the time given and informed the family of her condition beforehand. The family's lawsuit seeks justice not only for the mishandling of Regina's body but also for the emotional trauma inflicted on her family. Chantel recalled how the funeral home's director was not even present during the service, leaving only a receptionist to handle the situation. At one point, the receptionist had to cover Regina's face with extra cloth to hide her decayed appearance. The lack of professionalism and empathy from the funeral home staff added to the family's distress. The medical examiner's office had informed the family that Regina's body was ready for release the day after, but yet, the funeral home waited several days before collecting her remains. When questioned, funeral director Anthony Tenga cited factors like heat and the time between death and the viewing as reasons for the body's condition. He maintained that Regina had been embalmed and kept in a cold room. Tenga later tried to apologize to Chantel in person, but she refused to speak with him. Chantel described how, even on the day of the funeral, the receptionist claimed Tenga was unaware of the situation. Attorney John Daly, who was not involved in the case, emphasized that New York law requires funeral homes to treat bodies with respect and allow families to say their goodbyes. He added that families should have access to view the body whenever they wish. This legal framework underscores the responsibility of funeral homes to uphold the dignity of the deceased and provide compassionate service to grieving families. Regina Kristoff was more than just a victim of this tragic mishandling. She was a vibrant and caring individual whose life had a significant impact on those around her. She worked as a nurse, a profession that reflected her nurturing nature and dedication to helping others. Regina was known for her compassion, often going above and beyond to ensure her patients received the best care. Her colleagues and friends remember her as a beacon of positivity and kindness in the often stressful environment of healthcare. As a single mother, Regina was deeply devoted to her children. She balanced her demanding career with the responsibilities of parenthood, always prioritizing her children's well-being and happiness. Regina's vibrant personality and loving nature left a lasting impression on everyone who knew her. She was the type of person who would light up a room with her smile and bring comfort to those in need. She didn't deserve to be treated as if she was worthless. She deserved so much more, but instead her final farewell will forever be stained in the memories of her loved ones. The loss of Regina was a significant blow to her family and community, who cherished her for the person she was. For the Kristoff family, the memory of Regina's horrific appearance in the casket haunts them. They remember her as a loving nurse and mother with a vibrant personality. The last image they have of her, however, is one of a monstrous figure, a stark contrast to the woman they knew and loved. Regina's family never received a refund for the $6,000 they paid for the funeral. But no amount of money could ever erase the painful memories of that day, at the funeral, when they shattered a beautiful soul's final farewell. The memory of Regina, as she was in life, remains their guiding light as they seek justice for the mishandling of her remains.
That's all I remember is that monster being in that coffin, not my daughter.
Chantal Jean's last memory of her deceased daughter has become a living nightmare.
Her skin was all off. It wasn't even connected to her face anymore. She had 2 garbage bags put on her feet.
The images of Regina Kristoff at her wake at McManus Funeral Home on July 9th are just too disturbing to show you.
I saw that her face was caved in.
And the service too much for this family to bear.
A rotting body, that's what it smelled like.
Kristoff, described as a bold and bubbly soul in her 37 years, reduced to what her family says was a rotting corpse on display.
This wasn't somebody who died by violence or anything like that. She died peacefully in her sleep. So we expected her to look just or nearly as she did when she passed away.
Kristoff died on June 24th, but what happened between then and the service on July 9th is baffling this family. So we got McManus Funeral Home's manager on the phone.
I was devastated by this whole thing, by what she looked like. It was a real disappointment to me professionally and personally.
Anthony Tenga points to a number of factors when trying to answer what led to the body's advanced decomposition at the wake.
Time of the year, the heat, how long she was in the house when she died, how long she was in the medical examiner's office.
The medical examiner picked the body up from the home on June 24th, the day Kristoff died. The ME says the body was handled with the utmost care and ready for release the very next day. But the ME says the funeral home didn't claim the body until June 29th. The funeral home waited until they were paid for the arrangements on the 28th, 4 days after the death.
The sooner that you can begin that preservation, the better things will be.
But Michael Gorton of the New York State Funeral Directors Association says as long as the proper steps are taken, a delayed service shouldn't result in a catastrophe. The wake was 2 weeks after the death to allow relatives time to fly in from Florida.
It happens sometimes where someone is held in refrigeration for a number of days, 3 or 4 days is not uncommon. And it's been longer, and we've had people over a week, and we're still able to have good results.
Gorton says it's key to store the body in a dry, cool place and embalm as soon as possible. McManus Funeral Home says it embalmed the body the day it was retrieved from the medical examiner and stored in a heavily air-conditioned room until the service. The manager says he notified the family of the body's condition the day before and the day of the wake.
I thought I gave them fair warning.
Is there anything the funeral home could have done better?
We did the best we could.
Gorton says there should be constant communication throughout as soon as an issue is detected.
It's unexcusable for something like that to happen, and it puts a bad mark on all funeral directors, because we can do better, and we have to do better.
The family's lawyer says this level of negligence warrants a probe.
Without question, there should definitely be an investigation here on the part of the state. I've never seen anything like this.
An unforgettable, haunting image this mother now has to live with.
I even think an animal deserved a better funeral than what my daughter received.
In Flatlands, Anthony Carlo, News 12.
Anthony, thank you. Well, the family was offered a full refund. They're filing a lawsuit and a formal complaint with the New York State Bureau of Funeral Directing.
That's fear. Coming together, that shows that we're tied. That shows that we are united. Why are we afraid to come together? I'm not saying come have dinner with me. I'm just saying stand with me on the things that are affecting your neighborhood and mine. We need to show the criminal element that we're united, not that we're afraid.